My abuelita used to take me to church almost every single day. Um, and like for most kids, that might be like kind of like oh wow, she's taking me to church every day. But for me, it was this really great, opportunity to spend time with my grandmom and to really learn why it is that this faith is something that, you know, keeps drawing her in.
This is Queer Faith, Adora Lay's video storytelling project. It's a space where we will tell the stories of people on journeys of struggle and faith. Oh yeah, everyone we will interview is also a queer leader of faith, making things even more complicated.
My name is Ed, and I am the host for this Queer Faith. Adora Lay is a queer community of faith. Welcome. And can you introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name is Enrique Cintron. I'm a queer, non-binary Latinx person living in Philadelphia, PA. My pronouns are they, them, theirs.
Awesome.
I've identified as queer, I guess, for the past couple of years. I used to more strongly identify with gay, but queer has been more of a word that I feel like really encompasses a lot of my identity, not just as my sexuality, but also my gender and many other things. I was very pretty devout as a child. I really enjoyed going to church and all of that kind of stuff. When I came out around age 12 or 13, I first kind of started to notice friction between who I was and my faith. I was going to have to come to a place of either reconciliation or kind of just leaving it behind. And so I started to explore other different faiths because I had this inner realization that God is all expansive and Roman Catholicism is not the only way to God. I really appreciated a lot of the things that I learned from Buddhism and Hinduism and these other faith communities that I was a part of. But at the end of the day, there was just something about Christianity that still really spoke to my heart. So I went back to church about 2 years ago, and I started looking at the Episcopal Church, and that's been my faith home for the past 2 years.
What does queer mean to you?
On the one hand, it encompasses a lot of what I am, but at the same time, it's also moving beyond binaries and boundaries and something that can't be contained at the same time. And that's the beauty of queerness, is that it's it can be everything and yet none of these things at this.
So tell us some of the things that you're excited about faith and seeing POC people of faith.
I feel like queer people of color are really the future of the church, honestly, truly. I think on the one hand, I feel like we've been through so much that we really connect with other people who suffer, and so that really allows us to draw into wells of compassion and empathy that we have. And I think the church really needs a lot of that. I think that we really need more leaders and more people in ministry who understand the experience of marginalization. Because right now, a lot of the folks who are out there, in the church, come from places of privilege, and they don't understand what it's like to be discriminated and forgotten. So yeah, I think that not just that, but also we have so much resilience and so much beauty that is just really integral to our experience, that with that kind of energy we can really transform the church into something that is really life-giving, rather than something that is experienced as stifling or backward or whatever.
How do you feel encouraged on our journey of faith and struggle?
I think a lot about my ancestors. I think a lot about my grandfather experienced a lot of discrimination. I think a lot about how much he suffered, but also learned to live and to survive, and not just to survive, but also to thrive. And I think about him. I think about some of our queer ancestors like Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson, and not just my ancestors, but also my friends and activists in the community who are really doing a lot of powerful work and who are, really bringing our issues to the forefront. That's what keeps me energized and empowered.
Would you say that your ancestors are something that like continue to feed you also like spiritually?
Yeah, absolutely. My abuelita used to take me to church almost every single day. Um, and like for most kids, that might be like kind of like oh wow, she's taking me to church every day. But for me, it was this really her experiences, and a lot of other folks in my family have really like modeled for me like what an active faith looks like.
Our ancestors continue to be there for us. What can you share with queer people of color to help them along?
I think the most important thing for me that I try to pass on to other people is that you're not alone. Being a queer person of color can be very isolating, because we're marginalized within a community that's already marginalized. Um, and finding other people who share your theology or share your worldview is it can sometimes be a little bit daunting. Remember that you're not the only one out there. There are so many other people like you.
People don't always understand our identities or things about us. So
Yeah.
is there anything that you want to share?
Developing like a contextual understanding of not just like queer folks but people of color, um, just really stepping into our experience in predominantly white churches that I've been to. The approach to like Spanish language ministry is to just kind of like just directly translate things from English to Spanish. It's unfortunately like that's the approach to not just like translating things, but like just ministry in general is to just be like, well, it's like the same. We'll just like say it in Spanish. And it's like, no, there's so many different like cultural things that you miss out on. There's so many like, um, just like different understandings of theology that you don't get by just like going on Duolingo and like trying to learn Spanish. um, so I think like it's necessary to like really develop like a strong like contextual understanding of who we are, um, and to just to learn from us, to like not assume that you can learn everything just by like taking a competency course. Like you have to actually like build community with people and be in relationship with them.
Instead of treating us as the conversation, actually involve us in the conversation
Mm-hmm.
and have us sit with you. And, I know that you also do a podcast. So, is there any information that you'd like to leave before we get off where people can find you?
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram.
Thank you
Yeah.
for joining us. And
And thank you for
being
having me.
part of the conversation.
Yeah.
All right. Love you. Adios.
Take care.